highest rated QB ever, then what happens? Let's check it
The
out.
highest graded high school quarterback prospect ever.
Oh, wow.
He was a freak athlete and a highlight machine. And at Ohio State, he backed it up by becoming a Heisman finalist, winning playoff games, and throwing 6 touchdowns against Clemson with cracked ribs. But when he got to Chicago, he was thrown behind a broken offensive line, cycled through coaches and coordinators, and asked to save a franchise that had never truly developed a quarterback. And eventually the Bears gave up on him for Caleb Williams. Then Pittsburgh benched him, despite winning games. And in New York, it got even worse, as the owner of the Jets went on camera and publicly criticized Justin.
You know, it's hard when you have a quarterback with, with a rating that we've got.
3 teams, 5 years, and a career that unraveled faster than anyone expected. So what really happened? Did the Bears ruin him, or was Justin Fields always destined to fail in the NFL? From the most hyped quarterback prospect of his generation to one of the NFL's biggest unanswered questions, this is how the highest-rated high school QB ever became a bust in the NFL. If you were a high school quarterback in Georgia in 2017, you lived in the shadow of Trevor Lawrence, a player scouts called one of the best QB prospects in a decade. At least, unless your name was Justin Fields. But before his junior year, Fields was just some ordinary guy sitting on the bench.
High school, my dream was to just walk on at a D1 school, get a degree, and work an office job somewhere.
However, once he became the starting QB, everything changed. 2,770 passing yards, 23 TDs, 6 interceptions as a junior with 1,176 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, followed by a senior year where he accounted for over 30 touchdowns in 6 games. Justin was the kind of quarterback coaches built offenses around, the kind who could throw a 40-yard laser one play and outrun an entire secondary the next. He was ranked a 5-star and the #1 dual-threat quarterback in America, the Elite 11 MVP, and first or second on every recruiting board alongside Trevor Lawrence. Then, at a packed Harrison High pep rally, the lights, the noise, the entire school on its feet, Fields stepped forward, pulled off his jersey, and revealed a Georgia jersey. He was going to be a Bulldog. However, there was one problem. Fields was the 3rd 5-star quarterback to commit to the Bulldogs in the past 3 years, so the competition was pretty fierce. Jake Fromm had just led him to a national title game, so Fields didn't walk into a starting job. I've never been a backup in my life, not once in my football career, so this was a completely new situation. But the thing that got me through was God. I just wanted people to see him through me. I think that's what he did. And I think that's what he's doing right now. But every time he stepped on the field, the stadium felt it. In a part of one game, he went 7 of 8 with a touchdown. Against Tennessee, he had 2 rushing TDs. Then he put up 121 passing yards, 100 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns in one afternoon against UMass. He flashed greatness so often that fans kept repeating the same question. How is this guy not starting? Fields wasn't built to be a package player or a backup. So, after Georgia's SEC title loss to Alabama, he made a bold choice. He left home, and he jumped to the biggest stage possible, Ohio State. In 2019, he put up 41 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, nearly 3,300 yards, and 10 touchdowns on the ground as he finished 3rd in Heisman voting. Ohio State rolled into the college football playoff, and the matchup everyone had been dreaming of arrived. Ohio State versus Clemson. Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence. Fields came out swinging, lasers to the sideline, deep shots on the run, 320 yards against a Clemson defense full of future NFL players, putting the Buckeyes up 16-0. But Lawrence fought back, leading a 94-yard drive in 4 plays, capped by a strike to Travis Etienne to put Clemson up 29-23 with just minutes left. The game and the rivalry came down to one final drive. Fields marched the Buckeyes right back into the red zone, 23-yard line, 43 seconds on the clock. Then came the play no Ohio State fan will ever forget. Chris Olave broke to the corner, Fields threw to the post, and Nolan Turner intercepted the ball in the end zone. Clemson wins. But if you thought this was the end of the Fields-Lawrence rivalry, you're wrong. Because in 2020, despite the pandemic and a shortened season, Fields became the voice of the Big Ten, leading a petition to save the season. And when the games finally kicked off, Ohio State marched right back to the playoff. And who was waiting there again? Trevor Lawrence. Clemson, the rematch. From the moment Ohio State stepped into the Superdome, you could feel it. This was a score to settle. Dabo Swinney had spent the week poking the bear, ranking Ohio State outside his top 10, despite them being number 3. Justin Fields heard it. Ohio State heard it. And when the kickoff hit, they played like a team that had been waiting 365 days for this exact moment. Fields had weapons everywhere. Chris Olave back from COVID. Garrett Wilson in the slot, Jamison Williams, and a freshman named Jackson Smith-Njigba waiting in the wings.
We had a
This
whole Pro Bowl
Ohio State
once.
team was a force to be
Ohio
reckoned with.
State.
But midway through the second
Yeah, 5
quarter,
receivers.
Fields rolled out, set his feet, and took a brutal helmet-to-rib shot.
Oh.
He stayed on the ground, gasping for air. That's the moment where most quarterbacks come out, where most seasons end. But not Justin Fields. He jogged back onto the field, clutching his ribs and grimacing between plays, and then uncorked a 9-yard touchdown to Olave like nothing happened. Fields tore Clemson apart. 385 yards, 6 touchdowns, and only 6 incompletions. A 56-yard bomb to Olave, a 45-yarder to Jamison Williams. Every throw felt like a statement. By the end of the game, Justin Fields had torn Clemson apart for the 49-28 win. He showed the world exactly who he was when everything was on the line. So, when he declared for the draft, there were no doubts about his upside. Add in his 4.46 speed and 227
He had
pounds as
4.46
well,
speed.
and most expected
good?
Justin to go early. But when the draft started, something didn't add up. Trevor Lawrence went number 1, Zach Wilson at number 2. Even Trey Lance, a one-year starter from North Dakota State, went before Fields. Pick after pick, the cameras stayed locked on Fields.
But after like Carolina and Denver, after that 9th pick went, I was like, yeah, I don't know where I'm about to go.
Then the Chicago Bears traded a 1st, 4th, and 5th round pick to jump all the way up to number 11. They traded up for their guy.
My Chicago Bears select Justin Fields, quarterback, Ohio State.
Soldier Field, a passionate fan base, a franchise starving for the QB that they'd been chasing since the 80s. Fields believed he could rewrite all of it. Chicago's quarterback curse, Ohio State's NFL doubts, everything.
Nobody kind of has a story that I have. So just everything inside of me, just wanting to be a great quarterback, wanting to be a franchise quarterback, dreaming for this moment my whole life. So I think, all those intangibles, my work ethic and all of that together will, of course, be different for me.
The Bears coaches talked about patience. They talked about a plan. They talked about Andy Dalton being the bridge. But in a city starving for a franchise quarterback, the plan, well, it lasted about 3 drives. Because on opening night, the Bears were getting pushed around by the Rams. And out of nowhere, number 1 jogs onto the field. He was out there for just 4 plays, but somehow managed to score a rushing touchdown. 1 week later, Dalton hurt his knee against the Bengals. Fields came in, completed 6 of 13 passes, had an interception, ran for 31 yards, and helped Chicago hang on for the win. So, in week 3, Justin got his first start against the Browns. But it was a nightmare. Fields was sacked 9 times, 4.5 from
He
Myles
sacked
Garrett
9
alone.
times. They
As
literally
Chicago
sacked
finished
9
with
times.
just 47 total yards of offense. It looked less like a debut and more like a baptism by fire. But here's the thing about Justin. He doesn't flinch. The next week, he bounces back and beats Detroit. Then he beats Las Vegas on the road. But this season wasn't a straight shot upward. It was broken ribs against Baltimore, 5 turnovers against Tampa Bay, an ankle injury against Minnesota, COVID knocking him out of the finale. By the end of the year, he had 1,870 passing yards, 7 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions, 420 rushing yards, 5th among all QBs, but also 12 fumbles, the 3rd most in the league. A quarterback learning on the run, literally. But even through the chaos, you could feel a spark. A sense that if the Bears could ever build a real structure around him, the sky might actually be the limit. And heading into 2022, Chicago fired head coach Matt Nagy because his play calling never adapted and hired Matt Eberflus. But the truth was, this team was still far from complete. Fields completed just 56% of his passes through the first 6 games. Chicago lost 4 of those 6 games, including a 3-game stretch where he threw only 2 touchdowns and got sacked 18 times.
18
But then
times.
the Bears let him be himself. And the league wasn't
Bears
ready
sold.
because he stunned the Patriots on Monday Night Football with 179 passing yards, 82 rushing, and 2 total touchdowns in a 33-14 upset that snapped the losing streak. 2 weeks later, Fields rushed for 178 yards, breaking Michael Vick's single-game QB record. He became the first player in NFL history to throw 3 touchdowns and rush for 150-plus yards in the same game. That came with a 61-yard touchdown run, the longest by a QB in Bears history. A week later, he had another 60-yard TD against Detroit, as he became the first QB ever to rush for 140-plus yards in back-to-back games. The first in the Super Bowl era with multiple 60-yard rushing touchdowns, and the first QB with a rushing touchdown in 6 straight games. By December, even in losses, Justin was the most electric player on the field. But that brilliance came with a cost. Fields took 55 sacks, the most in the league. He led the NFL with 16 fumbles. He played through a separated shoulder, a leg injury, and eventually missed Week 18 with a hip strain. When it ended, he had 1,143 rushing yards, third most by a quarterback in NFL history. But Chicago finished 3-14 and didn't win a single game after Week 7. So the Bears made a move that changed everything. They held the #1 overall pick, but instead of drafting his replacement, the Bears doubled down on Fields. They traded the pick to Carolina for a massive haul of DJ Moore, 2 first-rounders, and 2 second-rounders from the Panthers. DJ had 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons and elite yak. He was a true wide receiver 1, finally standing across from Fields. The hype was real, and Week 1 was a chance for Fields to show the world he was the guy. A chance at finally flipping a rivalry that had bullied Chicago for decades. Packers versus Bears. Fields threw for 216 yards and a touchdown, but the play everyone remembered was the pick 6 as Green Bay walked out with a 38-20 win. Instead of a breakthrough, Chicago got a gut punch. In Week 2, Fields had 2 more interceptions. In Week 3, he had just 99 passing yards in a 41-10 blowout to Kansas City. But a week later against the Broncos, Fields started a perfect 16 for 16, the best in Bears history. It was his first 300-yard passing game as he finished with 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, and put Chicago up 28-7 before the late collapse. Week 5 against Washington, Fields threw 4 more touchdowns, 3 to DJ Moore, who finished with 230 yards. However, Fields suffered a dislocated thumb that sidelined him a month. By season's end, Fields had quietly set career highs across the board.
I feel like during quarantine, like that 2020 season, that messed him up. He wasn't starting, and then he moved to Ohio State. He was the backup quarterback, and he moved to Ohio State. Yeah, that quarantine messed him up probably. That's why he's not good.
61.4% completion,
never had a good-
2,562
he never really
passing
played with a
yards, a
good
career low 9
O-line
interceptions, and 657 rushing
Yeah, he
yards,
hasn't even played with a
despite
good
missing 4 games. He got better. The connection with DJ Moore was real, and the flashes were real. He pushed the ball downfield, finishing 7th in air yards, threw more catchable passes, and even cut his sack rate from a historic 14.8% to 10.6%. But the Bears had something even more powerful than potential, the #1 pick. Again, this time it was from the Carolina Panthers, who had traded it to the Bears last year alongside DJ Moore. And suddenly the entire season, the growth, the momentum, the chemistry, wasn't about whether Justin Fields could be the guy. It was about whether Chicago believed he should be.
And that was kind of my plan was, hopefully I could play in Chicago my whole career, make that franchise great, and, retire as a Chicago Bear.
But the truth is, you could feel it coming before anybody said a word. From the injury and the accuracy concerns, to Fields unfollowing the Bears on Twitter, to a quote-unquote generational talent in the draft in Caleb Williams, it was clear Fields' time in Chicago was coming to an end.
Let's see who you follow. Let's see who you follow. See the draft Caleb. So it's like, bruh, man, I'm tired of hearing the talk.
But what came next didn't make sense, because Justin Fields wasn't traded for a first or a second or even a player. He was traded to the Steelers for a 2025 conditional 6th-round pick. However, Justin arrived in Pittsburgh.
Yo, the Bears did him dirty. For a 6th-round pick? Is that dude even still in the league?
Pittsburgh was something he hadn't
I don't know why
had
the
in
Bears
years.
didn't like that.
A clean slate. He battled Russell Wilson in camp, learned a new offense, and when Wilson tweaked his calf before Week 1, Justin suddenly found himself right back where every quarterback wants to be, under center. A new jersey, a new city, a new chance to prove something, not just to Chicago or the critics, but to himself. And for the first time in his NFL career, Justin Fields opened the season 3-0 as a starting quarterback. He beat Atlanta, Denver, and the Chargers, not with 300-yard stat lines, but rather by doing something he'd almost never been allowed to do before: play within structure. And somewhere in there, a question started creeping into conversations around the league. Wait, what if the problem wasn't him? But perfection never lasts long in the NFL. Fields had some bad games, and eventually Pittsburgh went back to Russell Wilson. By the end of the year, he had 10 total touchdowns to just 1 interception. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it wasn't a failure either. And when the Jets saw what he did, they gave him a 2-year, $40 million deal that offseason, a chance for Justin to be a starter. And his first game was against none other than the team he just left, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And across the field was Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback the Jets had just moved on from. From the opening drive, Justin Fields was in complete control. He finished 16 of 22 for 218 yards, hit Garrett Wilson for a 33-yard touchdown, and reminded everyone why his legs change games. 12 carries, 48 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns, including a gutsy 4th down bootleg to retake the lead late. But then a kickoff fumble flipped the game, and with just over a minute left, Chris Boswell drilled a 60-yard field goal to steal it. The Steelers win 34-32. And while the Jets lost, yes, belief was real. Justin Fields had just gone toe-to-toe with a Hall of Famer, even if Rodgers was a little past his prime. He looked like he belonged. Then came Week 2 versus Buffalo, a divisional game with big stakes. And Fields finishes 3 for 11 for 27 yards, a 39.6 rating, and 2 fumbles. The Jets, as a team, went 0 for 11 on 3rd downs. And somehow things got even worse midway through the 4th quarter, as Joey Bosa drove Fields into the turf, his head snapping back as he hits the ground. Concussion. While Fields returned the next week against Denver, things didn't get any better. Just 9 completions for 45 yards. That same game, Jets punter Austin McNamara had 7 punts for a total of 355 yards. Week 6 against Carolina, 6 completions, 46 yards, 3 sacks, a 59.7 rating. The Jets weren't losing because they were outmatched. They were losing because their quarterback couldn't move the ball. And right after the Jets fell 0-7, owner Woody Johnson went on camera and straight up dissed Justin Fields, saying,
You know, it's hard when you have a quarterback with, with a rating that we've got.
even Jerry Jones doesn't do that. And then the inevitable. Justin Fields was benched for 36-year-old Tyrod Taylor. But then life threw one more plot twist, because Tyrod Taylor got hurt. Fields was forced back into the starting lineup before anyone was really ready. And for the first time all year, he delivered. Week 8 versus Cincinnati, 21 of 32, 244 yards, a touchdown, no picks, and a wild 39-38 comeback, the Jets' first of the season.
I'm gonna get pretty vulnerable right here, but this week I kind of, I found myself in my closet crying, on the ground, laying down. Not because of the hardships, not because of the troubles. So I was just praying over and over and over again, like, just one win.
For a moment, it felt like a turnaround, like the movie scene where the fallen star finds his footing again. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the benching, and it sure didn't silence the critics, but it got him back on the field. However, the wins didn't stack, and the numbers didn't improve. Fields went 2-7 as a starter, ranked 28th in QBR, and had just 505 passing yards across his final 5 starts. Then knee soreness started lingering, then he was inactive, and by December 23rd, it was official. Injured reserve, season over. The Jets finished 3-12. Fields' cap hit loomed, and the organization started talking about a reset. Now the kid who was once the #1 recruit in the nation stands at another crossroads. Which begs the question, what's next for Justin Fields? Because after 5 seasons, 3 teams, and every excuse in the book, the Justin Fields experiment has reached the point nobody wanted to admit. This might be it. Not because of one bad game, not because of one bad team, but because all the numbers, all the film, and all the trends point in the same direction. His first 3 seasons in Chicago produced sack rates of 11.8 in 2021, top 10 worst this century, 14.8 in 2022, second worst season in NFL history, and 10.6 in 2023. And while it's easy to blame the poor offensive lines Fields played behind for all the sacks he took, the truth is that a lot of the blame falls on him. Because Fields' average time to throw jumped to 3.04 seconds in 2023, the highest in the NFL. Nobody else was even close. Through 5 seasons, he's never finished above 20th in most passing efficiency metrics, and he's never cracked the top half of the league in sack avoidance. But what makes Fields such a frustrating puzzle is that he did improve in some areas. The 178-yard rushing game, the most ever by an NFL quarterback. The 5-game stretch where he became the most dangerous runner in football. Plays no one else in the league can make, but he cannot sustain drives. And while the teams love betting on potential, the reality is that Justin Fields will most likely never get a starting job again. He had all the potential in the world, but the one thing he never had was the time to become the quarterback he was meant to be. If you enjoyed this video, stick with Blitz. Subscribe, and check out.
I feel like in 2020, he messed up a little bit, and he went to the Bears, had to play for a shitty offensive line. All right, that's it for the stream. I'm not gonna lie. I'm falling asleep, so I can't react to the Drewski video. Alright. These videos will be up on YouTube tomorrow, so see y'all later.